Director Martin Scorsese said Shutter Island would be a massive success because people would watch it at least twice, once to watch it and once to understand what was going on. And ultimately, that's exactly what happened. You've seen plenty of films, but if you haven't seen this masterpiece, I feel sorry for you. How amazing must a film be for you to be completely stumped at the end, wondering what actually happened? So, here's a quick intro to the story. Two U.S. Marshals arrive on Shutter Island, which is basically a terrifying mental asylum. They're there to investigate the disappearance of a patient, but it turns out some pretty awful things are going on behind the guise of mental illness. So, the two of them set out to uncover the truth. But trust me, what happens to them will leave you feeling a bit crazy yourself when you try to sleep at night. So, let's get started with the full film explanation. The film opens in 1954. We see Edward Teddy Daniels and his partner Chuck Ollie heading to an island together. They're U.S. Marshals, and their job is to investigate serious crimes. Anyway, this island is called Shutter Island, and the reason they're going there is that there's a psychiatric hospital on the island, and a patient has escaped. They've searched high and low, but they can't find her anywhere. So they've been sent in to investigate. Daniels used to be a U.S. Marshal, but he left that job to become a detective. This case is the first time Daniels and Chuck have met. They've never worked together before. So, they're getting to know each other and chatting on the boat. Chuck says he's been a detective for 4 years, and Daniels says he's been working as a detective for 2 years. Then, Chuck asks Daniels about his family. Daniels says he got married 2 years ago, but then something awful happened. There was a fire in the building they lived in, and his wife and 4 other people died in the fire. Since then, he's been living alone, and that's how they arrive on the island. The mental hospital on the island is called Ashecliffe Psychiatric Hospital. As soon as they arrive, the warden welcomes them, and he gives them all the information about the hospital. He says that everyone in this hospital is seriously mentally ill, and more importantly, they've all committed some kind of crime. Because they were involved in some serious crimes, they became mentally ill through remorse, and have been brought to this remote area solely for treatment and rehabilitation. Some of them are violent murderers, some are rapists, and others are involved in even worse crimes. And that's why the island always has tight security, because if any of these inmates escaped, it could cause a major incident. While they're talking, they arrive at the hospital gates. Before they enter the hospital, the warden takes Daniels and Chuck's guns. Then, he tells them that the wards on the right are A ward, which houses the female patients, and right at the back is C ward, which is the most dangerous, where the most violent inmates are held. So no one can get into C ward easily. Only the doctors can enter when they deem it absolutely necessary. Anyway, after hearing all this, they go to meet the head doctor of the hospital, Dr. John Cawley. On the way, they see some of the mental patients staring at them in a strange way. Just looking at these patients, you can tell how dangerous they are. And they were staring as if they'd known Daniels for ages. Then, they arrive at the doctor's office. Daniels asks him to tell him more about the missing patient, Rachel Solando. So the doctor tells him that Rachel escaped from the hospital at around 10 p.m. last night. They've searched the whole island, but can't find her anywhere, and it's no easy feat to break out of this hospital with its high-level security. But the point is, they have no clue how Rachel disappeared. They've searched everywhere but haven't found Rachel or her body. And the whole island is surrounded by rocky beaches, so escaping from here is virtually impossible. Then Daniels wants to know more about Rachel. The doctor says that Rachel is a woman. Her husband was a U.S. Marshal, but her husband died in World War II. Since then, she's been raising her children alone. Then one day, because she was suffering from severe depression, she drowned her children in the water. And since then, she's been treated at this hospital for her mental health problems. She's been treated at this hospital for the past 2 years. But she's so mentally ill that even after killing her children with her own hands, she believes that her children are still alive, so she thinks everyone else in the hospital are her employees. Now, Daniels used to be a U.S. Marshal, so when he hears about the war from the doctor, he remembers World War II all over again. And whenever these nightmares come into his head, he gets a headache. You could say that the war was a trauma for him. So, when he starts screaming with a terrible headache, the doctor gives him an aspirin. After he feels a bit better, Daniels and Chuck go to Rachel's room to investigate. They start investigating around the room. As they're searching, they see that the windows and doors of the room are completely sealed. It's just not possible for someone to suddenly disappear from this kind of sealed room. As they're looking around, Daniel sees a piece of paper hidden on the floor. And on that paper, it says the Law of 4, who is 67. Neither of them can figure out what it means. Even when Daniels asks the doctor can't find any rhyme or reason to it. What is the Law of 4? And what is this number 67 trying to tell them? To Daniels, this message feels like a riddle. But he realizes that this message must have something to do with Rachel's disappearance. Then Daniels investigates the whole island again, but he still can't find any clues. We see the security guards searching the island high and low. As they're standing at the top of a hill, Daniels suddenly spots a cave. Have you ever searched inside this cave? The guard replies that it's impossible to go into this cave. Also, when they were searching Rachel's room, they found 2 pairs of shoes. That means Rachel wasn't wearing any shoes, and it's just not possible to walk barefoot through this path. Anyway, then Daniels starts questioning all the staff on the island. During the conversation, one of them says that one of the doctors is missing, and it's the doctor who is in charge of treating Rachel. When they look into it, they find out that the doctor took leave from the hospital this morning. So Daniels and Chuck try to contact the doctor, but they can't get through to him. Then that night, Dr. Colley introduces Daniels to one of his colleagues, Dr. Naring. But he's currently working as a doctor in America. But Daniels feels uneasy when he sees Dr. Naring. Daniels doesn't like Germans at all, because when he was a U.S. Marshal, they fought against the Germans during World War II. That's why he saw how brutal the Germans were. So ever since then, he couldn't stand Germans. Anyway, then Daniels tells Naring to give him all the files of the hospital staff and doctors, because he'll find some clue by investigating them. But Naring suddenly says no to his face. He says that these files are a patient's privacy, so there's no way they can breach a patient's privacy. When he hears all this, Daniels gets very angry, because he feels like this doctor is making excuses to hide something. So he says that if they don't get any help, they won't be able to investigate anything. And tomorrow morning, they're leaving here, and he'll send all the complaints against this hospital to the FBI. After saying all this, they go back to their room. Then Daniels tells Chuck that they're all hiding something from him. He thinks that they're involved in Rachel's disappearance, or that they deliberately made her disappear. Anyway, then we see Daniels is tired, so he falls asleep. But in his dream, he sees his wife. His wife was telling him there's another man named Andrew Ladis who disappeared on this island with Rachel. So you have to find him no matter what, because he's the reason for my death. Actually, Daniels often sees his wife in his dreams like this. Since his wife died in a sudden accident, Daniels always blames himself for her death, and he always thinks that his wife is constantly coming to him and saying things. That's why Daniels sometimes sees his wife in his dreams. Anyway, Daniels wakes up from a nightmare like this. He sees that it's raining heavily outside, and because of the rain, they're stranded, even though they were supposed to return in the morning, because no ferry can cross the raging sea in this stormy weather. So Daniels decides to investigate Rachel's case again. That's why he starts questioning all the patients in the hospital. And during the questioning, he asks one of them if they know anyone named Andrew Ladis, but they say in surprise that they've never heard that name before. After finishing the questioning, Chuck asks Daniels, "Boss, who exactly is Andrew Ladis? Why are you trying to find him?" Then Daniels says that Andrew Ladis also used to work in the building they lived in. And one day, Andrew Ladis suddenly set fire to their building. And that's how his wife died that day. But the funny thing is, after this incident, Andrew Ladis also became mentally ill, and he was sent to a mental hospital for treatment. And I found out through investigation that he was sent to this hospital, but he disappeared from this hospital after a while. After that, many investigations were carried out to find him, but he could never be found. Now, They go to a forest on the island to continue their investigation. There, Chuck tells Daniels, "When I went to get you some water in your room, a woman wrote something in your diary. Did you see what she wrote?" Then, Daniels opens his diary and sees that it says, "Run." They couldn't understand why that woman wrote this to him. Meanwhile, a violent storm starts on the island. The surrounding trees were creaking and breaking, so they quickly take shelter under a building. While they were sitting there, Chuck asks Daniels, "If you find Andrew Latis, will you kill him to avenge your wife's murder?" Daniels replies, "I saw a lot of people die during World War II. Also, I've taken the lives of many people with my own hands, so I don't want to kill anyone anymore. And I didn't come here to kill him." Then Chuck asks Daniels why he came here to take on this case. Then Daniels says that he came here to search for and investigate Andrew Latis after he disappeared. Then he met a man named George Noyce. This man had committed 3 murders. He was locked up in a hospital on this island for a year. And that's when George told Daniels that various experiments were being carried out on the patient's brains in this hospital. And one of these experiments was to erase their memories and turn them into robots. So, they no longer had any feelings. And in this way, they gradually turned countless patients into robots. And they used these patients to fight wars with other countries. Now Daniels says that the main reason he came here was to gather evidence of all this, so that he can expose all the secret wrongdoings in this hospital to the public, and uncover the dark secrets of this hospital. But even after hearing all this, Chuck doesn't seem to believe it. So Chuck says, "I think this whole Rachel case is a load of rubbish. Maybe they called us here on false pretenses. It feels like a big trap to me. Now I'm even starting to think that instead of us investigating, they're investigating us." When he hears all this, Daniel starts to get suspicious. And as they're talking, it's almost night. Meanwhile, as the storm is wreaking havoc everywhere, the warden of the hospital comes to the old building looking for them. At first, they think that this warden has come to kill them, but when they realize that he's there to save them, not to kill them, they set off with him. Meanwhile, Daniel's and Chuck's whole bodies were soaked because of the rain. Also, they didn't bring any extra clothes at the time, so they were forced to wear the hospital staff's clothes. Luckily, they weren't made to wear the patient's clothes. Anyway, that night, all the doctors at the hospital were having a meeting. Daniels and Chuck were standing next to them, listening to their conversation. From their discussion, it's revealed that there are a total of 24 patients in Ward C and 48 patients in Wards A and B. That means there are now 66 patients in the whole hospital who are receiving treatment here. When he hears this, Daniel suddenly says, "We had the number 67 written on a piece of paper in Rachel's room. And that means there aren't 66 patients in this hospital, but 67 patients. But you're saying there are 66 patients, so the math doesn't add up at all." Then Dr. Colley doesn't give Daniels any answer. Instead, he evades his question and gives him some news that makes Daniels stop in his tracks. He says, "We've already found Rachel, who was wandering near the lighthouse." Now, when Daniels hears this, he's completely shocked. How could she suddenly be rescued from the lighthouse after no one had been able to find her for 2 days? Anyway, to unravel this mystery, Daniel and Chuck go to Rachel's room. Now, when Daniel gets there, he asks Rachel where she was last night. But Rachel doesn't answer any of his questions. Instead, she starts talking nonsense. Because, as you can imagine, she was completely mentally ill. Anyway, at one point while they're talking, Rachel mistakes Daniel for her husband and hugs him. She keeps saying, "I missed you so much, and I couldn't spend enough time with my children with you." But after being in this very emotional state for a long time, she suddenly pushes Daniel away. Now, she says, "No, my husband isn't alive. He died in the war, so tell me the truth. Who are you really?" Then Daniel realizes that Rachel is actually a bipolar disorder. That is, both of her personalities work at the same time. But after this incident, Daniel starts thinking a lot about his wife. He sees his wife calling him, but the next moment, his wife is burning to ashes. In this way, Daniel becomes somewhat ill from various kinds of strange dreams. His head starts to hurt a lot, and he starts throwing up. When Dr. Cawley sees him in this condition, he gives him a migraine pill and tells him to take it and go to sleep for the night. Now, after everyone carries him together and Daniel falls asleep, he has another bad dream. He sees that Andrew is on this island. Also, Andrew is looking at him. The next morning, when Daniel wakes up, he comes outside and sees that the nurses and staff are all running around the hospital grounds together. Because the hospital's exterior has been badly damaged due to last night's violent storm, trees have fallen here and there, and the security system of this whole hospital has also been damaged. That's why Chuck suddenly says, "Boss, everyone's really busy right now, so this is our chance to get into Ward C. I think if you go into Ward C, you'll find out something about Andrew Latis. You might even find him there." When he hears all this, Daniel's eyes light up. So he sneaks into Ward C very easily without anyone noticing. Since they were wearing the hospital staff's clothes, no one suspected him in any way. In this way, after going inside, they hear a strange noise. Since it was very dark all around, he can guess that all kinds of dangerous criminals are swarming here. After going a little further, he sees a patient and thinks that he might be Andrew Latis. The man was sitting with his head down, so Daniel kept telling him to show him his face. But when the man shows his face, Daniel sees that it's not Andrew, but it's George Noyce. Now who is this George Noyce? I told you about George Noyce earlier. Anyway, as soon as George sees him, he suddenly recognizes him and says that you're trapped here. It's a trap. You think you've come here to investigate, don't you? But they've been watching you for a long time. And you've never worked with the person you came here with, so you can understand that he's also involved in this conspiracy. They'll all take their revenge on you together. After saying all this, Daniel says that he has full faith in Chuck. He's very close to him. Also, when George keeps telling him that their plan has been successful, Daniel can't find any rhyme or reason to this. When George says that they've already made you believe that you've come here to investigate, that means their work is now complete. Now you're trapped. You can't get out of here. All these things go right over Daniel's head. What exactly is going on? He's once thinking that maybe they've all trapped him and brought him to this hospital to get some work done. But that's not supposed to happen. Then George also tells him that I'll be taken to that lighthouse in a few days, and my head will be operated on. Then they'll open my brain and experiment on it there. But after hearing all these things, Daniel tells him not to worry. I'll save you no matter what. While saying all these things, Daniel suddenly sees his wife again in his imagination. And after seeing this kind of expression, George also realizes that Daniel is hallucinating again. So he tells Daniel that if you want to escape from here, you have to first let go of your wife from your head. Daniel then says that I can't let go of my wife from my head at all, because I was responsible for her death. Then George says that if you can't do that, you'll never be able to escape from here. You'll become weak here. And Andrew Latis, who you're looking for, isn't here either, because maybe he's been taken to the lighthouse to have his head operated on. When Daniel was talking to George about everything, Chuck wasn't around. However, after a while, Chuck comes back there and calls him. Then Daniel and him leave Ward C together. Then Chuck goes out and gives him a form. He says that this is the record of the patients in this hospital. But even after searching a lot, I couldn't find anyone named Andrew Latis here. Maybe you're making a mistake, because maybe Andrew Latis never even came here. But Daniel starts to feel that something must be hidden here. And the mystery of all this is centered around that lighthouse. Because when Rachel had run away, we also heard that she was found near that lighthouse. Also, George has told him that experiments on the brain are carried out inside the lighthouse. All these things keep swirling in Daniel's head. So he keeps saying that he has to reach that lighthouse no matter what and see what actually happens there. Now, as soon as he thinks about it, Daniel decides to go to that lighthouse. But Chuck keeps telling him that, boss, it's night now, and it's not possible to go to that lighthouse in any way through this path. Instead, you might die trying to get there. But in response, Daniel says that if you're so scared, then you can sit here. You can't stop me in any way. He decides to leave Chuck in a fit of rage. Chuck's heart becomes somewhat heavy at this act, and he stands there silently. However, after going some distance, when Daniel realizes that no, he has come the wrong way, and it will take him a lot of time to get to the lighthouse this way. Right then, he comes back and sees that Chuck is no longer there. However, even though Chuck isn't there, his recently eaten cigarette butt is still burning. In a fit of fear, he realizes that something bad might have happened to Chuck. And as soon as he looks down, he sees that Chuck has fallen off the mountain and died. After seeing this scene, Daniel can't believe it in any way. How did Chuck suddenly get into this condition? Did he kill himself, or did someone kill him? While thinking about all these things, he decides that he'll save Chuck by going down no matter what. So he crosses an impossible path and comes down to save Chuck. However, after coming down, he sees that Chuck doesn't exist at all. From above, he had seen that Chuck's dead body was lying there. But after coming down, he sees that there's no sign of a dead body there. On top of this, thousands of rats suddenly start rushing towards him from all directions because it has become night. However, after searching in various directions, he suddenly sees a cave. And inside that cave, he sees a light coming out of the cave. Now, as he moves towards the cave, he goes there and sees a girl. Finally, after seeing this girl, Daniel realizes that this girl is the real Rachel, and the girl he was told about yesterday was a setup actor in this hospital. Then it becomes even more clear to Daniel that there's a lot going on in the story here. So Daniel then asks her what she's doing sitting here. Then, the things that Rachel tells him completely blow his mind. Rachel says that she's actually not a patient, but a doctor in this hospital. Rachel goes on to say that they've been researching the human brain in this hospital for a long time. While conducting research in this way, they've discovered something through which it's possible to control the human brain. That is, they've discovered such a system where it's possible to erase a person's memories, sorrows, and happiness all at once. That means they can completely erase that person's everything through brain surgery and turn them into a completely new person. Since this is a mental hospital, and there are traumas working inside everyone who stays here, they're taken to that lighthouse and their brains are operated on in order to reduce their pain. Because of which, they can shake off all the traumas from their brains and present themselves to the world as a completely new person. Now Rachel says that the name of this method of medical treatment is lobotomy. And after learning about this method, Dr. Cawley wants to apply it to all the inmates. However, Rachel was very adamant about this decision. She didn't want a person's mental existence to be ended in this way in any way. That's why she opposes them over this decision. And because of this opposition, she's made into a sick patient and kept locked up in the hospital. But she somehow escapes from that hospital and now runs away to various places on this island to save her own life. After hearing all these things, Daniel's head starts to slowly open up. He becomes sure that what was actually going on here and what the real purpose of this hospital was. Anyway, because it has become night, Daniel falls asleep there that day. Then, as soon as it's morning, Rachel wakes Daniel up and tells him that it's time for you to go. If we stay here, one day I, along with you, will also get caught. That's why you should go to that lighthouse and see everything with your own eyes. After learning all these things, Daniel asks her, "Well, a friend of mine came with me. Have you ever seen him?" After hearing this, Rachel says, "Daniel, you've come here alone, and I know that you don't have any friend with you." After hearing this, Daniel seems to fall from the sky. "What are you saying? Chuck has roamed and wandered around this whole island with me. How can he suddenly disappear?" Anyway, then Daniel comes back to that hospital again. Now, after seeing Daniel, Dr. Cawley says, "Daniel, Rachel has already been found, so I think your work is now over and you can now go back home." However, Daniel says, "Yes, I'll go, but have you seen my partner Chuck?" In response to this, Dr. Cawley also says, "Hey, you've come here alone. You don't have any partner named Chuck." What does he mean by that? I'm also surprised like Daniel after hearing this. What's actually going on? Here, does that mean that the doctor is lying to him, or is he trying to trap him? Again, it may also be that Chuck is hallucinating all these things. But no, Chuck is a healthy person. How can he hallucinate all these things? However, don't worry. You'll get all the answers after listening to the whole story, because the story is still long. Anyway, after hearing all these things, Daniel starts to think that maybe all these people have planned and taken Chuck away, and they're trying to erase all his memories by operating on his brain. Then, it's seen that Daniel comes to his room and takes a bath, and he starts thinking about what he'll do now. However, while thinking, Daniel decides that he'll go to the lighthouse this time, no matter what. And according to that, he's able to go to that lighthouse after crossing all the obstacles. However, after entering here, he first sees Dr. Colley sitting here beforehand. Now, Daniel tells Dr. Colley that Rachel has already told you everything about me. In the name of treating people here, you're experimenting on the brains of ordinary people, and you're turning everyone into robots. However, Dr. Colley now starts to tell him that everything you've been thinking about for so long is your imagination. Wait, I'll now tell you the truth. You yourself are a patient in this hospital. You're the 67th patient in this hospital. Oh my God, I've become literally shocked after hearing this. What are you saying, that a splendid man came here and they're now making him a mental patient? Not only that, Dr. Colley tells him that your real name isn't Daniel. Your real name is Andrew Lettuce. After hearing this, Daniel becomes even more shocked. What are you saying? The one I've come here looking for is me myself? That is, what's happening here? Dr. Colley gives Daniel a form to show proof of everything now. And it's written on this form that Daniel has been admitted to this hospital for the last 2 years. Daniel gets very angry after seeing this thing, and he keeps saying that I don't believe anything. You're explaining wrong and making me a mental patient, and you want to achieve your own work. So tell me quickly where you've hidden my partner and why. Then the doctor keeps saying that you were a U.S. Marshal before, but you've been taking my treatment here for the last 2 years. Then the doctor tells him to look towards a board. The names of Edward Daniels and Andrew Lettuce were written on this board. The doctor then says that your real name is Andrew Lettuce. The one you're searching for in the island is actually you yourself. And you yourself have created your new name, whose name is Edward Daniels. Also, you've discovered a new name in your own brain, whose name is Rachel. You've created these names from these two names themselves. You've created Angelides from Daniel and Rachel from your wife Dolores's name. And you're so stubborn that you've made up your own story in your brain. Where in that story, you're a detective who's searching for his wife's killer. Let me also tell you that you've been telling us this story for the last 2 years. But none of this is true. Whatever you're thinking, your subconscious mind is telling you all this. You're hallucinating, and everything you're seeing around is because of your mental imbalance. Do you know that your wife's name was Dolores Chanel? And you yourself are the 67th patient in this hospital. After hearing all these things, Daniel seems to fall from the sky again and again. And he now goes from the sky straight to hell. When he sees that his partner Chuck has again appeared in that room. Now, Chuck comes and stands next to Dr. Colley, and he says that Daniel, I've been treating you for the last 2 years. I'm not Chuck. My name is Dr. Sheeran. This Dr. Sheeran is the same doctor. That is, he had gone on leave 2 days ago. Now, after hearing all these stories, Daniel keeps telling him again and again, brother, you're lying. I've come here to save you. But Chuck says, look, I'm your personal doctor, and I've stayed with you to take care of you. And I've been with you in the guise of your partner Chuck to take care of you. After hearing all these things, Daniel picks up the gun lying on the table in anger and sorrow. And he starts shooting Dr. Colley with it. He sees that blood is coming out of his body due to this bullet injury. But what's this? Even though blood is coming out, nothing is happening to Dr. Colley. Then he gets even more shocked that the gun he had picked up in his hand was a toy pistol. So is this the truth, that everything he's been thinking about for so long is a lie? There are now thousands of questions inside his mind. Is he really a mental patient, or are all these people making him a mental patient? Now, Dr. Daniel, in the form of Chuck, starts to say to Daniel, why are you in this condition today? Dr. Sheeran starts to tell about an incident from 2 years ago. He tells how he starts to show him the pictures of his dead children, and after seeing these pictures, Daniel starts to remember all his old memories. In that memory, one day when Daniel comes home from his work, he sees that his wife is behaving somewhat strangely. Her whole body was dripping with water. After seeing this, Daniel asks that, why are you so wet, and for good? Where are our children? After hearing this, Daniel's wife says that, your children have gone to school. But after hearing this thing, Daniel says that, today is Saturday. Today is not supposed to be their school. In response to this, his wife says with a smile that, "My school has no time. My school is always open." After hearing this thing, Daniel's heart seems to sink inside. He looks around and sees that 3 objects are floating in the distant lake. He doesn't have any doubt left that his wife has already killed her own 3 children. Running madly, Daniel then jumps inside that lake and rescues his 3 children. Actually, Daniel's wife had bipolar disorder, because of which she was in great depression and she drowned her own children in this way. Daniel never realized that his wife had such a big mental problem. Within moments, Daniel's whole dream seems to be shattered. His life seems to start changing at a complete 360-degree angle. He's not able to understand how he'll overcome this grief. He keeps thinking again and again that, if I had understood my wife's mental condition today, then my children would have survived. Maybe they wouldn't have had to suffer this death. But even after that, he shoots his own bullet in his wife's stomach in anger, rage, and sorrow, because Daniel felt that he has no right to live now. In this way, along with Daniel's 3 children dying, he kills his own wife with his own hands. And it's been after this incident that Daniel, i.e. Anjolaidas, completely breaks down and he loses his mental balance. His mental condition becomes so bad that he never wants to think that he had done such a big deed. In order to explain things to his own mind, he always made up a new story in his brain. And this story was such that as a detective, he's searching for his wife's killer. All in all, this whole story that we saw for so long was all made up by Daniel, i.e. Andrew himself, and he was actually trying to keep himself calm by making up such stories in order to get rid of this pain. But even after trying so many times for the last 2 years, it wasn't possible to take these pains out from his heart. However, today, Daniel slowly remembers everything again, because of which he admits with his own mouth that, yes, I'm actually Andriel's. Then the doctor tells him that even 9 months ago, you had remembered everything. But after a few days, you again get lost in your own imaginary world, and you call yourself Daniel. And in this way, you've done the same thing so many times until now. However, I hope that you won't do this kind of thing this time. This time, you'll accept your own reality, and you'll learn to believe in your own life. However, along with this, Dr. Cowley also tells him that this is your last chance. Even after this, if you again go back to your imaginary world, then you'll be given that ligotomies. That is, after erasing all your memories, you'll be made into a new person. After the end of all the things, Daniel seems to be immersed in deep thought. Daniel is again seen sitting with Chuck. Right then, all the big officials of this hospital were standing far away. They've all understood that Daniel has already returned to his normal life, and he has accepted his reality. But suddenly, Daniel now says something in such a way that everyone's hope is completely shattered. Here, Daniel suddenly addresses Dr. Sheeran as Chuck, and he says that, Chuck, we have an opportunity right now to leave this island. That means you people can definitely understand that Daniel has again gone back to that old memory of his. That is, even though he had accepted all his reality yesterday, today he has again come back to his old position. Because of which, Dr. Sheeran informs with his signal that no, Daniel has again gone back to his old memory. So at this moment, there's no way left except for him to be operated on. After getting this signal, the doctors start to prepare to take him to the operation theater. However, something like this happens at just this moment, after hearing which, I've become completely shocked. In this place, Daniel now asks Chuck a question, addressing him that, well, Chuck, which thing will be the best, to live as a bad person or to die as a good person? And right after hearing this thing, the doctor also becomes completely stunned, because he understands that Andrew remembers everything, and he hasn't forgotten anything. But here, he doesn't want to live as a bad person anymore. He doesn't want to keep this pain inside him alive anymore. Because of which, he now wants all his memories to be erased by doing surgery. He doesn't want to live with the difficult conditions of his past in any way now. And for this reason, he now wants to have his own brain surgery done by his own will. Oh my God. Believe me, after getting a shock like this at the absolute last moment, I've really fallen from the sky. It's feeling somehow that a person has already become healthy, but he's not able to erase his pains from his heart in any way, and because of which, he has agreed to erase all the memories of his own life. This movie ends right in such a scene. Just think once, what amount of price he's having to pay because of this mistake of his. After losing everything, he doesn't want to come back to his real life at all now. How much helpless a person must be in order to erase his own memory himself. That's why you must think once before taking any wrong decision in life. I hope that you people have liked today's video a lot. And there are countless thanks to the people who are watching until now. And I hope that you'll express your liking through a like. See you in the next video. And yes, definitely keep Popcorn Explained subscribed, because all the bombarding thriller movies are about to come there. I'm seeing you people in the next video.